see that spring out there in the yard? And I said, yeah. She says, there was a baby drowned in that spring. I said, what? Yeah, there was a baby drowned out there. People used to come up here at night and sit in the dark and wait to hear the baby cry. There's mobs come up, they sit up there in the woods, you know. I finally asked the sheriff to do something about it. He asked him to leave. I said, you're making this up. She said, no, Gary. There was a woman come down here and drowned her baby in the spring out there. Why? Tell me why. Well, I don't understand. Well, she had a baby and she wasn't married and her family disowned her and she come down here and drowned the baby and then she went on down and drowned herself in the river. I said, that's the damnedest story I've heard. I don't know whether I believe it or not. She said, well, you better believe it. It's going to be a cold night, you know. I'm going to put the flannel sheets on the bed now. And she got up and went in the house. And I'm sitting there in the dark by myself. All of a sudden, ah! 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 That baby cried. That's Granny, that's who that was. So I ran in the house, and just as I got in the kitchen, she was coming in. She'd been outside. I said, where you been, Granny? She says, oh, I just went to close up the chickens, and I just got back. That was you, wasn't it? I said, what do you mean that was me? I just heard that baby. Oh, you heard it, did you? Not many people hear it. Your story makes you special. I'm glad to know that. My granny was sneaky. Question? No questions. Are you already through with me?
Give us one more.
Don't have any trick questions going on?
Tell us about the time the convicts got chained up in the river.
Huh.
You know, the guys on the river that got chained up and got drowned?
Oh, okay. Yeah. What he's talking about is one of the worst things I've blundered into. I could put together a program called Liar's Bench, and I might tell you some more about that. You might be interested in the Liar's Bench, but I was out collecting stories, you know, and I went down to Cherokee and got a Cherokee family who agreed to come and sing Amazing Grace in Cherokee at my program. And I keep asking and finding other people. Got a quartet, and they all come to sign. And then I told a couple of stories. I've got about 150 that I can tell. But I don't tell unless I got an enthusiastic audience, you know. But when I was down in Dillsboro on occasion, I was at the tunnel, and I knew the local history said that 19 convicts had drowned in the river right there. I'd always accepted that story. And the railroad claimed that they all were buried on top of the tunnel. And that's the story that everybody, and when they took the tourists on the train ride, when they took them through the tunnel, they told them that the water running down the wall was the tears of those 19 men. Well, one day when I was down there with a friend of mine, and he was filming everything, and he filmed the tunnel. You couldn't see all the way through it because it sort of crooked a little bit, just enough that there was total darkness in there. And so I looked across the river and I saw a woman sitting on her back porch in a wheelchair looking at me. And I told my friend, you see that woman? Let's go talk to her. And he says, well, we'll have to go all the way around and go down another road, which we did. And we went to her house and we walked up out on that porch where she was sitting. And I said, would you mind if I talk to you, ask you a few questions? She says, don't film me, I broke my plate and I don't want people to see me with a broken dental plate. So she sat backwards when she talked to me. And I said, okay, I want to ask you about the convicts that are buried on top of the tunnel. She says, the what? The convicts that are buried on top of the tunnel. No, they ain't. I said, what? No, they're not buried up there. They're buried in my backyard. I said, you're kidding. She said, honey, if you got a minute or two, I'll get my brother to take you to where they're buried. Do you want to go? And I went, and it was a terrible trip. It was up a mountain, and it went on and on. There used to be a cow pasture. Well, the guy that I took, he was a dowser. Y'all know what a dowser is? You do? If you don't know what a dowser is, holds a forking stick. My granddaddy believed in them devoutly. Used them to find water, but that's not the only thing they found. They found graves as well. And he went, and I can't tell you why, but I believed him. And he found 2 graves. He told them, he says they were buried in their chains because there's a lot of metal in this grave. And he says, I'm having trouble finding the last, but he finally found the 3rd. So he found all 3 graves, and they're there. And they're not buried on top of the tunnel, which is the lie that the railroad told. And I called Raleigh, and they looked at the names of the convicts who had died in that flood, and they gave me 19 names, told me where they came from, what their age was, what crime they committed to be on the chain gang. Of the 19, not a single one of them created a serious crime. They were there for all ridiculous reasons, and when I pursued it, they said, well, some of them were arrested for walking on the highway at night. Some were caught gambling. Some stole a chicken. Nobody killed anybody. These are all minor offenses. But we needed people to work on the chain gang, so we had a special list of crimes that they were guilty of. Now, since then, it's been a constant fight to try to get some sort of recognition for those 19 guys buried up there. I know their names. One of them is a 14-year-old boy. None of them are very old. I guess the oldest they got was 45, I think. None of them had committed a serious crime. All of them had families in North Carolina. All of them are living in the Piedmont. And that's just something that the railroad's clever about. When they take convicts, they put them in an area that is contrary to their birth. Makes them easier to control. And right now, I've written a play about them. And I don't know, maybe it's not a good play, but I've been hauling it around now for 3 years, and nobody will produce it because it has 19 black actors in it. Because I thought all of them should speak. But so far I haven't found a theater group that had 19 black actors. So it's unproduced. There's been a couple of big college exhibits and discussions at the college about the thing, about it needed to be somehow identified, some sort of recognition. It was sort of a scar on Jackson County, something that they had not they should have done something to honor those 19 convicts. So far, it hasn't happened. I can now and then ask a few questions. And
What was, all 19 of them, they drowned, you say, together at the same time? How did they die? In other words, all 19 of them.
How did what?
How did they die? All 19 of them died together, right? Did they drown?
How did he get what?
How did they die?
How did they die? All the convicts.
Oh,
Was that it? I mean,
well, since it was on his land. Now, I didn't finish the story. Some of you look bored. I'm boring them, I'll hush. Okay. When I ask questions like that, you know, where was he? And then he said, the land that they're buried on belongs to so-and-so. And this fellow came forward and says, he moved to Texas and never came back, but I'm looking after his land, and I'll make decisions. Nobody's going to touch those graves. Nobody digs those convicts up. I say so. And apparently he says it with authority because there's no move. Now what I recommend is, for what it's worth, that Western Carolina take an interest in all this, that they dig those 19 convicts up, that they move their bones or whatever is left to the Black Baptist Church in Silva, and that they accept them, and we put a statue or whatever decoration we want to there, honoring them, and then honoring the fact that this black church has accepted or given them a place of comfort, and that would take care of it all. It'd be sort of nice, but it hasn't happened. We have other prior concerns. Question? Yeah.
Tell us about your fascination with chickens.
Oh, well, okay. When I sat on the porch with my grandparents, and that was when I was happiest. We're sitting there in the dark, can't hear a sound. My granny tells me stories. I remember her on one occasion, she says, Garnale, it were a night like this when your daddy brought your mother home. I heard him coming up the road. He was playing that guitar he's always playing, and he played it real nice. And she's a real tiny little thing, and she had her arm in a sling, and she was dancing around them, and they just walked right up to the foot of the steps. And he says, we got married tonight in Walhalla. You could do that then. You go to Walhalla and get married before you came back. And they came back, and he had brought her home to live in the family house. And of course, my grandfather was greatly upset of the whole thing. So they were both upset. But that's not the story that he asked me about. The story he asked me about is, sometimes when we were sitting there at night, there was a holiness church on the hill behind me. And that guy was passionate. He was preaching fire, and oh my God, lake of fire, gonna burn forever, all I give. And sometimes I was so bored sitting there, I got up one night and I went up the hill to that church and went in and sat down on the back bench. And this guy was good. There were people crying in there. They were crying because he convinced them that they were going to burn in the lake of fire if they didn't come up right now to the mourner's bench and talk to him. And it inspired me. I was inspired by that preacher. I saw the way he handled that audience. Had half of them crying, all of them looking depressed. I decided I wanted to be a preacher. So I came home And I went in the house and I got the Bible. And I got a lantern. And I went to the chicken house. And we had 150 chickens. And I preached to them chickens. I scared the hell out of them. I told them about barbecues and Colonel Sanders and all the bad things that's waiting for them out there in that lake of fire. I'll hush. Question. I like my best tonight. I'm sorry for that. I haven't told stories in 3 months. So I guess I've kind of lost my shine a little bit. I'm sorry.
No, you haven't.
I think I'll hush unless y'all want to ask me a question. I got plenty more stories, but I'm not real interested in telling them unless I've got a lot of enthusiasm.
Tell them about your stuff you got over there, your books. Tell them about your books and things, 'cause I've been to several of Gary's storytelling. I'm new here, didn't never know who Gary Carden was. And I've read some of his books, and he's a great author, and he's a great writer, and a great artist. But you do better when people ask you about, like he did, stories of something he read in your book, and then it reminds you of the story, and you can tell it. So
Well, that makes me think of something weird that happened at dinner today. I ate dinner here. I usually eat by myself, and I ate by a fellow who didn't have a lot to say. He was an elderly fellow, probably a grandfather, and so when I got up to leave, I said I invited him to my storytelling, and I don't believe he showed in. No, I don't think he did, but that's okay. He told me he wanted to talk to me. He says, I have 14 grandchildren, and I would like to tell them the story of my life, and I'd appreciate a little help. If you would sit and listen to me, and if you'd give me a little polish and make me a little better than I am, I'll go and find my grandchildren and tell them about my life. And it's a good life, and I want them to be proud of me. Well, I don't know. Maybe I could do that. I don't know. It's a little strange to think about teaching a class in a self-help facility, but maybe it's possible.
and that's your calling, you know.
Yeah. Question.
Reckon we need to blow the tannery whistle?
Oh no, really? Well, let me see if I can shorten it a little bit. These people are looking tired and weary, and they need to get to their situation comedies on TV. Okay. They used to have an expression in my hometown in Silva. Blow the tannery whistle. And I hadn't ended it. I went around and asked people until they told me how that expression came to be. And you only hear it in Silva, you don't hear it anywhere else. It's in Silva. Why do they say that? Well, when the tannery opened, it had a marvelous whistle, and they blew it, and it blissed. You heard it every morning, whoa! It went clear to the holler, and clear out the other end, whoa! Sort of mournful sound. And it's to let everybody know it's time to go to work. So everybody gets up and goes to work at the tannery. Okay. What happened eventually is the mayor of the town went over to the tannery and says, you're wasting that whistle. I thought, you just blow it for people to come to work. Why don't you blow it when something important happens in this town? I mean, we had a football game last Friday and we beat Bryson City. blow the whistle for beating Bryson City. And the guy says, I'll call the owner in New York and see what he says. And he did, and he reported back. The owner says, we can't do that. We can't use the whistle to treat foolish things like that. I don't care about all I'm interested in is you getting them hides out here as fast as you can. I'm not blowing any whistle, but I'll go this far. I'll go this far. If anything interesting ever happens in Silva, I'll blow the whistle. And so when people wanted to express total disbelief and amazement, that's what they said. I mean, when my grandfather's sister, who was an old maid in her 60s, married a teenage boy, he thought that was worthwhile. And he told everybody, well, blow the tangerine whistle. Okay, I guess I'm through now. I'm better than this, I tell you. Okay.
Is the,
If there's anybody that doesn't want to be on film, raise your hand so I can edit you out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.